ad hoc committee on the petroleum industry bill. The representative of the 6 state government of the South here present, representative of the host communities, the NGOs, the NNPC, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I feel honored to welcome you to the zonal public hearing organized by the House of Representatives Ad hoc Committee on the Petroleum Industry Bill. Today's historic event is in furtherance of the cardinal legislative agenda of the 7th Assembly, the 7th House of Representatives, which is to encourage and facilitate public participation in and contribution to its legislative process. Upon the submission of the bill to the National Assembly by the Executive, last year the House quickly swung into action by taking the bill through first and second reading before committing it to this ad hoc committee for further legislative action. I wish to report here that the ad hoc committee has so far undertaken extensive work on the bill leading to today's public hearing. These hearings are concurrently going on simultaneously in all the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. The object is to provide an opportunity to Nigerians of various classes and calling to make inputs into the making of a petroleum law that will substantially address the various ills that have continued to bedevil the oil and gas industry. I need not remind us that corruption, indiscipline, strong criminality such as bunkering and vandalism have assumed unacceptable proportion in the industry. We must therefore seize the opportunity provided by the PIB to collectively confront this evil headlong. Pursuant to this, all hands must be on deck. Consequently, industry stakeholders, civil society groups, and host communities are expected to offer advice, expert opinion, and make robust but constructive critiques of the various provisions of the bill. Let me assure you once again that we shall attach probatory value to your contribution, since neither the executive that has sponsored the bill nor the National Assembly that is processing it can claim monopoly of wisdom and ideas that can lead to the transformation of the industry. For us in the National Assembly, public participation in lawmaking is a cardinal principle which has always defined our legislative action. All bills processed by the current House, not just PIB, have been subjected to appropriate level of transparency and public participation. Hopefully, all-inclusive procedure will not only enrich the emerging Petroleum Industry Act, but also confer autonomous legitimacy on it. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the experience we had recently during the debated interaction at the committee's retreat in Lagos revealed that the bill tends to elicit interest on a number of provisions, particularly the new institution parastatal created by the bill, governance issue relating to the delineation of powers, environmental host community issue, frontier exploration, and even the more technical matter of fiscal regime bordering on joint venture and production sharing contract. Yes, I therefore wish to join members of the legal community, both the bar and on the bench, tax expert, industry expert, among others, professional bodies and interest groups, to have a microscopic analysis of the bill from the perspective of its relationship with other existing legislation such as the Public Procurement Act, Federal Inland Revenue Service Act, Company and Allied Matters Act, etc., with a view to identifying possible area of conflict if any, between the PIB on the one hand and this existing legislation on the other, as well as providing cure for noticeable and PPGs therein. As indicated on the occasion of the inauguration of this committee, permit me to reiterate once again that the committee and indeed the larger House of Representatives have no hidden agenda whatsoever regarding this bill. We will continue to view and treat the bill purely from the presence of overriding national interest. As a serious and responsible parliament, we have always refrained from conducting ourselves, our debates, and our general legislative action on the altar of sectional bias, bigotry, and chauvinism of any nature, not even the PIB, will therefore make us deviate from this cherished ideal. As we commence this hearing, we urge you all to conduct and comport yourself with civility, decorum, and tolerance. We may express and expose different views on various issues, but I believe that at the end of the day, we all share the same desire of reforming this critical sector of the national economy with a view to making it more efficient, more competitive, more attractive to foreign direct investment, and more beneficial to our people. An efficient oil sector will surely contribute greatly to our effort at diversifying economy, or as the over-independence on this single source is not only economically suicidal, but it portends far-reaching national security issue. I thank you so much for honoring us with your presence. I do look forward to having your views on the crafting of this important legislation. Happy deliberation. Thank you. Now we are going to commence the second part of sitting today, that's the presentation of paper from the stakeholders. Quickly, I would like to invite Professor Dagogo Ubara to please come forward and present his paper.
Can you put your hands together for him, please? Come on stage.
I'd like to make a presentation on this bill on behalf of the Rivers State government. We have the entire document written up to give to you, but I'd like to summarize a few things that are silent pictures what we would like to see. The petroleum industry in Nigeria has for many years remained the nation's major source of foreign exchange. The Niger Delta states have remained the principal states where the oil and gas resources are found. On the Petroleum Equalization Fund, we suggest that the Petroleum Equalization Fund should be discontinued because it negates the concept of commercialization and the food deregulation as it is clearly an unwarranted subsidy. There is no need for it, and in the body of the paper we explain why the Petroleum Equalization Fund should be discontinued. There is no such provision in the petroleum industry in any part of the world. There is no part of the world where you make provision for any product to be sold exactly at the same price at every port, every part of the nation. But besides, in the process of this equalization fund, we found out that the NNPC had built depots and pipelines from the Niger Delta to all parts of the country. But there are no such finished product pipelines into the oil producing areas. As a result, as you move 10 minutes away from Port Harcourt, the price of petroleum It's about 3 times what is in Port Harcourt, and it is not equalized by anything. If the country can build pipelines for crude oil throughout the Niger Delta, they should be able to build pipelines for refined products which we pay for, the nation pays for, and depots are made throughout the rest of the country. On the issue of Petroleum Host Community Fund, we said the fund should be paid from rents and royalties and not from oil company net profit, because that's an operation. We don't know how to compute the net profit. But rents and royalties we do know. And in particular, this country is the only country in the world where rents and royalties are not paid to the owners of the land. And if they want to pay this in, they should remove net profit and put the thing to be 10% of rent and royalties to be paid to the host community fund. In the area of the National Oil Company and National Access Management Company and the National Gas Company, on gas flaring, we suggest that gas flaring should be stopped. But the oil companies are not doing it. And until that gas flaring is stopped, we suggest that the gas flaring should, the penalty for it, first, should be increased 10 times, so that the oil companies will think it necessary to stop the gas flaring. This country flares more than 60% of gas flaring in the whole world. But above all, while the gas flaring continues, the gas flaring penalty should not be paid to the Federation account. It should be paid to the host communities that finally, with the 2 more issues before I go to the details. I'm just going to summarize what should be taken up. This summary and the paper you have. The abandonment and the commissioning and disposal of petroleum industry facilities, those things should be conducted in consultation with the host community, not just what the oil companies think is.
I would now like to give the mic to my colleague if they have any question.
I am Eda Awoke, Iloro Benin Frederick, Councillor Center Youth Development Dialogue, and Secretary, Patani Local Government of Delta State. Mine is a humble plea to the National Assembly. Note, you remain the symbol of Nigerian democracy. Therefore, issues that borders on our national economy, especially the petroleum industry, be handled with all sense of patriotism.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Francis Ikio. I represent Bayelsa State. By the grace of God, I'm the Commissioner of Energy. Bayelsa position is properly articulated in the paper. For some technical reason, the paper is not here with me. And I promise that it will get to the committee, articulating the views of Bayelsa State. But let me just say this. What we are here to do, this bill is of great significance to the people of the Niger Delta. It is for the first time we are going to be part of the formulation of a law that will affect our lives. And you know, oil affects us directly. The exploitation affects us directly more than any other person in Nigeria. Previously, laws were sent down from wherever and imposed on us. So we are suggesting that a day or two is not sufficient for Bayelsa, for Niger Deltans to properly express their views. The chairman of the committee also accepted that in his speech, talking of sufficiency of opportunities for people to really express their views. So we suggest that further hearing be held in all the states to allow for people, if possible, to properly, intensely articulate their views.
Whenever the paper, the draft is ready, then you submit to the secretariat. Then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, we'll do that.
Thank you very much. Then any representative of the Delta State, Cross River, Akwa Cross River, Akwa they do. Of the representatives of this state, let me call quickly in Ayop Edwards, National Organizing Secretary, Niger Delta, representing the House Committee for Delta, Bayelsa, Edo, and River State. Yes, it's 5 minutes. Since everything has been put into writing, you know, even now in court, what we have is we have just already cancelled advocacy. Just
respected royal father, respected stakeholder, host community, please, I just want to apologize on behalf of the national chairman, Chief Dr. Bubo, who is in Uyo. So whatever I'm going to read here, I'm going to read on behalf of the United States. So the whole things I hear. Some of the things said here by host community, we have seen that it's good for people to know the history of host community. Both federal and state government have never taken the issue of host community serious. We came together, donated 150,000 each to fight for what we think is our rights. And during the Obasanjo regime, we were in Aso Rock to report our governors who were not doing well. If you also look at some of the things they do, they were duplication of projects. You see a village, the federal government will give water, state government will give water, local government will give water, without asking those who are really suffering the hazards, the health hazard and the environmental exploitation of these people. Our line is this. In our paper here, in line of above, the host community shall no longer ready to accept any program that will be administered by any organ of government, be it state or federal. We are only going to talk on where it affects us, which is the host community trust fund bill. Please, we have talked, like somebody who talked about gas flare. We were the one who came out and brought out what our host community were suffering. If you go to Obricom, children born in that place don't know the difference between night and day, actually the location. Because the gas is flared 366 days in a year. And we asked, who is supposed to enjoy some of this penalty? And it was our position that this money was paid into the central bank. And we said, no, this money should be paid to people who are suffering from this hazard that are there. And that was why we went in the first public hearing. During Yaradua's time, we went there, made our submission to the Senate and the House of Reps based on this bill. Host community. Host community. Host community.
Thank you very much. He's going to do his presentation right away to the
Royal Highnesses, distinguished members of the building, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. In our paper, we did make some recommendations about the issue of host community and what host community. At the moment, I'd like to tell you, honorable members, that every oil company operating in the Niger Delta has an MOU signed with host communities. Okay, I'm sorry. It is not there in every community. I do know that some oil companies have MOUs signed with the host communities to guide them to operate peacefully. In my community, we have to tell them, you are working here, one people are working here. These are positions for the host community. The traditional rulers and the CDC and everybody tells them what they do. So this is not happening everywhere else. This is one way that if each oil company is asked to establish a trust fund with this money with MOU with the host community, and that the MOU is registered whichever structure you want, then they know the money is going there. The issue of not giving this money to local government, with all due respect, our local governments have not shown that they are taking the responsibility of developing the people at grassroots. Money comes and goes, and the leaders don't see what they're doing. So this money should not go to the local government again.
Okay.
My name is Chief Dr. Edward Bristol, and I want to mention precisely that the draft bill, section 118 of the bill, has a management structure for the host community fund. It says that the minister shall make a regulation regarding the governance and management of the fund. This is clear and okay by us. What we have suggested in the paper that Professor Lagorufuga read to us on behalf of the Rivers State government, also protecting the interests of the oil communities, is that if there is just one fund, it will be unwieldy. There should be different host community funds. And what we have as MOUs and are working, strictly speaking, in direct, simple agreement that is enforceable with all the communities, no matter how many they are, with the management structure that is put in place by the regulation already prescribed by the PIB, is enough. MOUs are memorandums of misunderstanding. We want simple, clear, and sustainable development agreements. Thank you.
I found all this existing protocol. My name is George Gill Anthony. I work for the Niger Delta Project Monitoring Group. Let me move forward to say that Part 1, Section 2 and Section 170, Subsection 2 of the PIB does not align with the aspirations of the section of Nigeria on true fiscal federalism. In view of this, and for the purpose of this unrealized aspiration, Part 1, Section 2 of this bill should be reaffirmed and should reaffirm the enforcement of Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution. Article 21 of the African Charter for Women's and People's Rights should also be respected by Nigeria in relation to these provisions in the bill. Nigerians should also be interested to research into contents of the Amalgamation Constitution of 1914, the Clifford Constitution of 1922, the Richard Constitution of 1946, and the Littleton Constitution of 1954. Now, having said this, let me take you back to some complications of the PIB. Before the PIB is passed, there is need for the National Assembly to look critically to the Petroleum Profit Tax Act of 1959, the Petroleum Profit Tax Act, Chapter 354 of 1990, and 22 other laws listed here. It is quite critical that those laws, you all need to look at those laws very, very critically. But one contentious issue that seems to be dividing Nigerians about the PIB is this host community form. Host community. Some people are already saying you are already getting too much NDDC, you are getting this, you are getting that. And alarmingly, Section 116 of the bill, despite all the oil-producing communities in Nigeria, be they in the north, south, west, or east. It is a section which proposes the establishment of the Petroleum Host Communities Fund. Section 117 of the PIB introduces the purposes of the Petroleum Host Communities Fund. I quote, shall be utilized for the development of the economic and social infrastructure of the host communities within the petroleum producing areas. Nigerians need to take a look of Part 2, Section 7, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I of the NDDC NDDC Act. What the drafters of the PIB did was to shy away from a constructive strategic thinking for the betterment of the host communities, which they further compounded by proposing the creation of another nomenclature with the same replications of the functions of the NDDC, shying away from salvaging the oil-producing communities and correcting the injustices. Concretely, we hereby
social action.
Can we put our hands together to encourage the presenter of social action, please? A non-governmental organization, and this is the first woman to take a slot today.
Chairman of the Opposition, members of the High Table, ladies and gentlemen, let me adopt all protocols at this stage. This memorandum is a product of consultation, meetings, and other dialogues with community and civil society leaders, beginning from November 2009, as part of effort to democratize discussions towards producing a satisfactory PIB. In particular, Social Action organized consultation meetings for civil society actors in Yeneba, Bayelsa State, Port Harcourt, Lagos State, and Abuja between 2009 and 2013. Reports and recommendations on earlier versions of the PIB are attached as appendices to this memorandum. This memorandum on the 2012 version of PIB focuses on issues of more direct concern to communities impacted by the exploitation of crude oil and natural gas. In particular, we examine the provisions of the bill on matters pertaining to ownership of oil and gas, the flaring of associated gas, and the issues of environmental property protection and property rights of host communities. I will try and summarize this presentation. The ownership of oil and gas under the PIB. The 2012 PIB continues in the practice of denying communities the right to natural resource ownership and to participate in the management and control of natural resources, which is fundamental to their existence as a people whose way of life and survival are closely linked to their environment. By virtue of Section 2 of the PIB, the 100% ownership of oil and gas within Nigeria, its territorial waters, and the continental shelf, the exclusive economic zone and intended continental shelf, is vested absolutely on the federal government of Nigeria. The above provision retains the petroleum ownership provision in the Extant Petroleum Act. The unfair position is supplanted and compounded by Section 1 of the Land Use Act Decree No. 6 of 1978, now known as the Land Use Act Cap 15, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, that vests ownership of land in the governor of the state. A combination of these provisions of the Land Use Act and the PIB deprives people of their ancestral property, land, and the associated natural resources. Community equity. Part 2G of the PIB provides for the establishment of the Petroleum Host Communities Fund, PHC Fund. Its purpose and beneficial entitlements to the communities. According to Section 117, the PHC Fund shall be utilized for the development of the economic and social infrastructure of the communities within the petroleum producing area. The bill sets aside 10% of the profits derived from petroleum operations in the onshore areas and in the offshore and shallow water areas, as well as those from upstream petroleum operations in the deep water areas for administration and use by oil-producing communities, and this is for emphasis, oil-producing communities. However, despite the laudable idea of the PHC fund, Section 118(5) and 6 creates doubt that communities will actually get the benefits from the PHC fund. Now, Section 118(5) states thus. It says, where an act of vandalism, sabotage, or other civil unrest occurs that causes damage to any petroleum facilities within a host community, the cost of repair of such facilities shall be paid from PHC fund entitlement, unless it is established that no member of the community is responsible. However, there is no provision for community representation in the process of determining the possible community members' complicity in the vandalism or act of sabotage. And this omission, which would result in abuse and the wanton blaming of and criminalization of the whole community, is reminiscent of the colonial era of collective punishment. Within the current prevailing and unjustifiable practice whereby oil and gas producing companies blame majority of oil spills on sabotage, we are concerned that the PHC fund may become an industry and government fund for repair of facilities and environmental remedy rather than benefit for the non-suffering host communities. Section 1186 makes the administration and management and disbursement of the PHC fund political, non-transparent, and open to abuse and manipulations, as it is entirely within the discretion of the Minister for Petroleum. Many of us are arguing here we are going to manage the money. What the bill actually has stated is that the Minister is going to make a provision for the structural management of these funds. So it is not even within, it doesn't even fall within the jurisdiction of host communities to say this is how our money will be managed. And it expressly provides for the Minister to say so. And community participation. Part 3 of the bill that addresses the upstream petroleum makes no provision for host community participation in the process of granting exploration and exploitation licenses. Section 179(3)(d) provides that the development plan of an operator should include an approved Nigerian content plan, pursuant to relevant law on the Nigerian content development and no more. It says in essence, beyond the establishment of the Petroleum Host Community Fund, the bill makes no special provision for host communities. While Section 297 requires companies to publish annually the criteria for location of community development projects and other acts of social responsibility, there is no clear mandatory requirement for such development projects as obtainable under the Minerals and Mining Act 2007. On community development, the Mining Act provides in Section 71(1) that the holder of a mining lease shall not commence any development work or extraction of mineral resources on the mining lease area until after the conclusion of a community development agreement approved by the mine's environmental compliance unit or department. Moreover, under the Mining Act, the minister in charge of the mines and the minerals, has a duty to monitor compliance and community development agreements by industry operations. These provisions for communities are completely lacking on the petroleum industry bill. The PIB does not have similar provisions as obtained in the Mining Act. Therefore, similar provisions should be inserted into the PIB for the protection of host communities' occupied territories for health and safety reasons. Moreover, unlike the oppressive legal regime under the PIB, the Minerals Act provides for consultation with landowners even before granting of mining title to a mining company. Also, where a private land is to be affected, government must obtain the consent of the private landowner before mining title would be granted. Where such consent is absent, the private land will be excluded. This is provided for under Section 100 of the Mining Act. Further recognition of the right of the owner of property to determine its rent. The Mining Act clearly gives the landowner the exercise of that right, as can be seen from Section 102 of the Act. Gas flaring. Under the existing law, Associated Gas Reinjection Act, gas flaring is illegal. And the oil-producing companies were given a deadline of January 1, 1984 to stop all acts of flaring of gas or be made to pay penalty for breach of law banning gas flaring. This is the intendment of Section 3.1 of the Associated Gas Reinjection Act, which provides, as subject to subsection 2 of this Act, no company engaged in the production of oil and gas shall, after January 1, 1984, flare gas produced in association with oil without the permission in writing of the minister. And this is where the problem is. The minister's permission is on a field-by-field basis and in fulfillment of certain conditions, and by Section 4 of the law, the PIB seems to have legalized gas flaring by virtue of Section 201, and this is what it says. It says the lessee may pay such gas flaring penalties as the minister may determine from time to time. 2, it says the lessee shall install all such measurement equipment as ordered by the inspectorate to properly measure the amount of gas being flared. It simply mandates the company to pay what they could as seen as gas flaring tax and indefinitely flare as much as they want. However, Section 275 of the bill provides that gas shall not be flared after a date to be given later by the minister through subsidiary legislation. And this is subsidiary legislation, not a legislation to be made by the National Assembly. The implication of this is that with the repeal of the Associated Gas Reinjection Act by the PIB 2012, gas flaring will become legal in line with Section 201, pending the date to be prescribed by the minister. This is a grave uncertainty. Moreover, Section 283 provides that all certificates issued for gas flaring under the Associated Gas Reinjection Act will continue to have effect until they lapse. The implication is that host communities to these oil companies will continue to suffer the obvious health hazards with gas flare. We recommend that the National Assembly insert a clear deadline in the PIB 2012 to end gas flare in Nigeria, while stipulating very strict penalty, including the forfeiture of licenses for failure to put out the flare on the day so provided. Environmental protection and management. There are positive provisions in the PIB actually in relation to environmental protection and management. For example, Section 179 provides for the requirement of a field development plan for commercial discoveries. The development plan is to meet adequate health, safety, and environmental standards. In addition, it must contain an approved environmental management plan and provide for the elimination of routine gas flaring. According to Section 200, the licensee's environmental management plan, which is to be submitted to the inspectorate for approval, must contain information on the environmental and social impact of the proposed oil and gas exploration and exploitation. Section 292, however, places an obligation on oil and gas companies to use precautionary approach to environmental challenges and to develop and use environmentally friendly technologies for exploration and development in Nigeria. These provisions, I'm referring to Section 290, 291, and 292. These are standard terms and should not be watered down in any form. These sections incorporate internationally accepted environmental law principles for sustainable development, intergenerational and intragenerational equity and precautionary principles. The challenge, however, is the enforcement of the application of these principles. However, the bill leaves more to be desired. There is no incorporation of the polluter pays principle, and it fails to remove the controversial provision on sabotage. Section 293, subsection 2, 3, and 4 are completely anti-environmental and anti-people. It imposes an unbearable burden on innocent poor rural communities. The implication of the provision is that host communities will have to bear the burden of securing oil pipelines and equipment in their domain. The bill seems to hold them responsible once oil operators allege sabotage, until contrary is proven. What the bill fails to put into consideration is that even where there is sabotage, it does not follow that it was a member of the community that committed the act. Furthermore, where there is a dispute as to the cause of the act that has resulted in harm to the environment, the licensee or affected person or persons may refer to the agency for a determination, and the decision of the agency shall be final. This is what the bill says. Nigeria has been known not to have the capacity to hold oil multinationals to order, thus making the determination of the cause of oil spill to rest on officials of the regulatory institutions would on a long term be detrimental to oil-bearing communities. The section should be reviewed, as it also amounts to an attempt to halt the jurisdiction of the courts. Shortly before I conclude, compensation. On the very delicate issue of compensation, the bill introduces nothing helpful to guarantee payment of fair, adequate and reasonable compensation for those whose lands must be compulsorily acquired for oil and gas activities. Provision for compensation excludes the active participation of landowners in oil-producing areas in the determination of what is required as compensation for them. Now, the concern for communities is a situation where the minister makes the regulation that suits the Nigerian states and multinationals, but is unhelpful to communities. Furthermore, unlike the positions in the Minerals and Mining Act of 2007, when the landowner has to say what his compensation should be, Section 296 of the PIB provides that the landowner covered by a license will be compensated in terms to be determined by an agency through its relevant factors. So we are seeing discrepancy here between what obtains in the Mining Act and the PIB. The other relevant factor is vague and may pose a problem to annual reviews and create uncertainty. Access to justice. Now, there is an important issue here, provision on legal suits. Now, the provision on limitation of legal actions against institutions established by the bill are rather restrictive and will affect access to justice. It is a common knowledge that as a technical industry, it takes time for people to comprehend the impact of most actions of the operations. Therefore, to expect aggrieved persons to institute action within maximum of 2 months of the short out from the courts is mean. Most communities, sometimes it takes them a long time to understand the impact of oil and gas exploration. Now, the bill establishes that if a community or a person, an aggrieved person, does not bring a legal action within 2 months, that will never get to bring it again against any institution. So we consider this to be mean. This should not be accepted. This is the purpose of Section 37.2, 3, 67.2, 3, and other such things. In conclusion, the PIB is seen as a bold attempt to make access to laws governing oil and gas industry easier for both operators and regulators. However, this is not the case, as most of the regulations are left for the minister in charge to make. This uncertainty is a concern to both communities and other stakeholders. In relation to communities in the oil-producing area of the Niger Delta, the PIB has failed to address the issue of resource control or resource participation that we have been agitating for. It is important for the Nigerian state to boldly seize the opportunity of this bill to effectively address the issue of resource participation and control. It is imperative for the administration and sharing formula of the BHC fund to be expressly provided for in the bill and give it a firm legal backing. There is need to improve on the environmental protection provisions, especially to provide for a ban on gas flaring and to adopt the polluter pays principle in relation to the acquisition of land, oil and gas activities. The bill should make it mandatory for oil and gas companies to meet the landowners in their communities, enter into agreement with them, and pay all rents and compensations before entering the land to commence any form of activity. Also, because Section 179 urges the oil and gas companies to have development programs, the PIB did not provide for community development agreement to be entered between communities and the oil operating companies. It is strongly recommended that the community development agreements should be incorporated into the PIB to ensure the development of oil-producing communities. Such agreements should be a condition precedent to the issuance of licenses as obtained under the Mineral and Mining Act 2007. Finally, PIB should be consistent with the practice of true federalism in which the exploitation and management of natural resources in a state will be controlled by the component federating states with the remittance of taxes and royalties to the federal government. I thank you all.
Shall we go and do the presentation to the...
Now I would like to call the African Network for Environment. African Network for Environment. Here, last person to present them on the 20 tomorrow will take place. And then I would like to, at the end of the day, before we close, I will call those who are supposed to present their list tomorrow.
We recommend that this provision should be expunged or replaced with the National Oil Company shall be subject to provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act and Public Procurement Act. We also looked at oil and gas flaring. So much has been said about flaring. We agree that flaring should be stopped because of the effect it has on the environment. But it is also correct that there is no way, in the course of producing oil, there must be waste. There is no way to completely avoid gases being flared. But before you stop gas flaring, it is our humble belief that certain things must be put in place to rechannel these gases that must of necessity be flared. So it will be unrealistic for you to say gases should not be flared, and there is no way of, you have not made provision for how to cater for those gases that must necessarily come out of the process of oil production. We also consider the issue of discretion, discretionary power vested in the president and the minister. Under Section 5, discretionary powers vested in the Minister of Petroleum Resources under this section is too wide and it is subject to abuse. There is need to make the powers of the minister under the section subject to the scrutiny of other national institutions. We notice that in the bill, the National Assembly is denied of its power to check the activities in the oil and gas sector. So we believe that in the National Assembly you have representatives from every part of the country. It's a good forum for checking the activities in the oil and gas sector because of its importance to all of us. So we believe that the actions of the minister under this section should be subject to the scrutiny of other institutions such as the National Assembly or the NEITI and any other institution that may become necessary. It will enhance the check and balances, promote check and balances in the operation of the petroleum sector, which is the goods that produces the golden egg in the country, like we said before. To this end, there is need for the minister to give periodic reports of activities in the industry to the National Assembly, where all Nigerians are represented for review in order to constantly meet the general objective of the Act. There is somewhere where the minister is expected to present such report to the National Executive Council. But we know that the minister is a part of the National Executive Council. So it cannot be a fair review of what the minister is doing if you expect the minister to only present his report or her report to the National Executive Council. We believe that there should be a neutral body like the National Assembly to review the activities of the minister from time to time. Under Section 6, subsection 1, paragraph F, among other provisions therein, the petroleum minister is given the powers to exclusively negotiate international petroleum treaties and agreements with other sovereign nations, international organizations, and other bodies, and execute same on behalf of the nation. In other words, the minister can negotiate on behalf of Nigeria anything that borders on petroleum issues in the country. This is unsafe for the nation. The section assumes that the petroleum minister would always be a person who knows it all, an expert in anything that concerns petroleum. But you and I will agree that it is not always so in the democratic era. a person that may not be an expert in petroleum business can be a minister. The president can appoint anybody to be a minister, even if we expect that he appoints somebody that has an idea. This cannot always be so, particularly in the democratic era, where ministerial appointments are influenced more by political considerations and not expertise or technocracy. There is need for the minister to seek approval of the National Assembly and consult seasoned professionals in the given field before and during the negotiations and agreement with other institutions on behalf of the country. The issue of Ogoni, is it not Ogoni now? The one that was ceded to Cameroon. Many people said, Bakassi, I'm sorry, that enough consultation was not carried out. To avoid this kind of situation where you expect the minister to just enter into an agreement without proper consultation, and at the end of the day, it will be to the detriment of the nation. We think that because of the sensitive nature of such negotiations, a lot of professionals and those that have stake in the business should be involved before the minister goes ahead to negotiate. Labor, students, private sector, and international development agencies to step up their support for the passage of the PIB, including increased sensitization of all sectors of society as to the importance and impact of the PIB on development and standard of living in Nigeria. We humbly urge the leadership of the National Assembly, in the interest of national unity and sustainable development, to work to ensure the speedy passage of the bill, taking into consideration the inputs from all stakeholders in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank everybody, particularly the royal fathers who have time to bear with us this morning. And I believe whatever we deliberate here will benefit the millions of people outside here representing who are not able to be here. I will take it seriously, I say seriously, all your submission. We will take it into consideration. I will try we articulate it and aggregate and see what we can do best that will bring unity, happiness, and prosperity for this country. Thank you so much once again. We hope to meet, and then we hope to meet you once again tomorrow. Especially we are going to have a presentation from Nupeng, Shell, Development Company, Total, and the Center for Democracy, and among others. Please, tomorrow is going to be 10 or 10, and grace of God. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you give him a
Fiscal policies for oil and gas should be desegregated, and incentives for oil is stated clearly as different from gas to encourage investment in gas as the revenue streams are fairly stable. Furthermore, and this is very serious, the PIB, initially before the PIB came out, the oil and the gas companies and the gas sector is not subjected to petroleum profit tax, which is 85% for onshore. Then plus minus the advantages of the MOUs. Now they were subjected to company income tax of 30%. Now the PIB is saying that export gas should be subjected to that same 80%, and that it gives incentives. Only domestic gas should be subjected to 30%. But the PIB, rather than saying the activity, is saying the company. As of today, there is no oil and gas company that is solely dedicated to export gas, domestic gas. So what that means is that nobody will be interested. And the issue of domestic gas is largely one of infrastructure. The infrastructure for the domestic gas is not there. And I think that government need to look about how do we develop, because it is domestic gas, gas utilization is very, very important. And government must ask itself, do you want to use their gas just to get revenue or to develop the country? If you say you want to use their gas to develop the country, then come out with the framework. Take like element petrochemical EPCL. If you notice well, our rubber, plastic industries are doing well. They are doing well because most of what they get it from here. And so if you ensure that our domestic gas is used very well by developing the infrastructures, I'm sure that even the multinationals will want to invest. But a situation where we all know the challenges of cash flow, where we are saying we won't give you incentive for export gas, we will only say give incentive for if you are solely dedicated for domestic gas. A cost for deception. That means, do I set up a company for that, or do I lie about it? Even if I lie about it, where will I get the gas from? because the people that will actually drain these gases are not dedicated to domestic gas. So we think that those incentives should be targeted at the programs and activities, irrespective of the company. Institutional framework. The PIB aims at sweeping reforms in the oil sector. The main plan is to put in place an elaborate institutional reform process for the oil and gas sector. Unfortunately, less focus has been on the proposed institutions, with more emphasis placed on fiscal terms and the proposed host community form. There is need to critically examine if the institutional reforms proposed in the PIB are global best practices, aligned with the Nigerian oil and gas policy, and are capable of delivering the long-sought efficiency required for industrial operations, thereby placing it on the same footing for the future. Global best practice for oil and gas administration is to have a policy formulating body, which is the government ministry or department, an independent regulatory agency, or agencies as we have in the PIB now.
ERA is looking at the PIB in 4 various categorizations. We are not looking at everything in the PIB. We don't have the capacity to look at everything in the PIB. And no group has such capacity. And that is why the diversification of this discourse becomes very, very important. We are looking at governance institutional issues. We are looking at environmental issues, which is our greatest concern. We are looking at issues of community participation and then enforcement mechanism. These 4 broad areas are areas of our concern. On the issue of governance and institutional issues, we first want to look at the question of sovereignty, the sovereignty question in the PIB. And this is an area that, if we don't get it right from the very first word, then we'll have a problem with it. The PIB, as currently presented, places the ownership of the petroleum resource and the management in the hands of the federal government of Nigeria, which is an aggregation of a few persons, which can be misused. And we know that laws like this cannot be changed every other day, because we know that the nomenclature for the federal institution can change at any time. And we think our suggestion is that Section 2 of the PIB should be amended by deleting the phrase "is vested in the government of the Federation" at the end of the paragraph, and inserting in its place the phrase "is vested in the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria." There is a distinction between these two. The people, sovereignty lies with the people, and the ownership of the resources lies with the people. And that is where we can now talk of host communities, and then we'll be right to talk about it. Now, we further recommend that a new subsection 1 of section 2 should be added that vests the management and administration of petroleum resources on the government of the Federation of Nigeria. So this will clear all issues and doubts, ownership in the people, management in the government. Now, much has been said on the issue of the discretionary powers of the President in awarding of blocks and granting of licenses and leases. Now, ERA's position is that Section 191 of the draft PIB should be expunged, especially as it weakens the clear provisions of Section 190, subsection 1 and 2, which provides for award of oil blocks by open, transparent, and competitive bidding processes. So you cannot approbate and reprobate at the same time. You have said that it must be open, it must be competitive, and it must be transparent. And in the same breath, in another session, you are giving the power to Mr. President to award to whoever he wishes or she wishes, as the case may be.
My name is Kes Ambodile, and I'm speaking on behalf of SPDC and the share companies in Nigeria. So we will make a few comments at this hearing, which by so doing contributes to this process of putting in place a very important legislation for this country. We're in the process of finalizing our memorandum, which we hope to submit on or before a hearing in Abuja. But I think it's important that, by the way, the memorandum will summarize and articulate all the issues and concerns we have identified in the PIB, and will at the same time also outline what we consider to be solution or solution principles to addressing this concern. So that's still work in progress, and hopefully between now and the time the hearing in Abuja comes up, we'll be able to make that presentation. But I think it's important to use this forum to talk about a few issues which have not been mentioned, except for the presentation by Nupenga Pengasan in the morning, which have not been discussed since yesterday and today by previous speakers, like I said, except for the presentation by Nupenga. These concerns are equally as important as the ones that have been raised by every stakeholder in this hall, but some of them are equally positioned that they may even impact the ability to realize the benefits of other issues that have been raised, especially the issue of PHCF, for instance. But before I go further, let me just reiterate that Shell as a company supports the aspirations of government as they are articulated in the PIB objectives. And of course, we have over the years been working with government to meet some of the national development aspirations. As we know, Nigeria is the leading producer of oil and gas in the world, and we hold the largest reserves in Africa. However, oil and gas discoveries are being made in other parts of the world: Ghana, Australia, East Africa, Brazil, US. And this, of course, is providing new investment opportunities for all investors. So, for us, the PIB presents an opportunity, a significant opportunity to improve the regulatory climate and provide globally competitive and attractive terms that will ensure that this flow of investment will continue in Nigeria to help us unlock all these opportunities that we have, and at the same time helping to catalyze the Nigerian development. So having said this, let me just go quickly to talk about some of the concerns that we have, and one of them is on the fiscal issues. I'm not sure I will be able to articulate it better than the Pengasan presentation this morning, but the fact is that the PIB, as presently proposed, the fiscal terms, when I say fiscal terms, are those elements that make a project viable to go ahead.